Strap on your seatbelt and prepare for takeoff. You're about to go on a journey. It's First Contact Radio with Joshua Poet.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Welcome to First Contact Radio, everybody. It is Thursday, the first day of August. New month is upon us, 2019. Let's see what we've got going on today. If you watched the debates yesterday, well, I'm sure then you saw some of the insanity continued from day number one. Those are the people that want to lead the country. Wow. All I could say is they just have a different world view. And some of the humor from the night just came the way they were attacking each other. What I find was humorous was that whenever, like Kamala Harris, she got questioned by Tulsi Gabbard, wanted to question her record on how she voted and put so many people in jail, especially she said so many blacks were put in jail by her for marijuana crimes, but then she's out making a joke about how she was smoking. And Kamala didn't like that because it's hypocrisy that was pointed out. And so when Kamala came time to answer the question, she started to answer, and then she turned to Joe Biden and attacked him. And that was sort of the par for the course over the evening. Whenever somebody got hit with something that was logical, their response was to turn from the person who questioned them and to attack Joe Biden. He was the punching bag for the night. And that's pretty much how it went. I don't think there's really any need to rehash the nonsense. Marianne Williamson was got her attention that she got. But remember, A Course in Miracles was scribed by a man who was a psychology in the field working with the MK Ultra program, and that the person who wrote it, who channeled the information, was one of those guinea pigs within the MK Ultra program. Now, we don't know what the reality or truth is of what's coming out from that information. All we know is that there were those who were involved with programs to control the mind were also in control and working with this project here. So I would be highly suspect, and I would then want to look at the situation and wonder if there are people that are out there programmed with certain keywords that will then respond if somebody goes ahead and triggers those words, like maybe Marianne Williamson. All right, so we'll see how that plays out. It's just a big festivity of a bunch of clowns up on stage. We'll see who makes it to the next place, who doesn't. The ones who were sensible, like was it Andrew Yang? I thought he was pretty sensible. Some of the things that he was saying when he talked about business, when he gets into he wants to give every money. Well, that's sure. Who wouldn't like to have free money given to them? But is that really something that is going to help us advance forward? Do we really find ourselves in a society that when people are given, we give all of this money to various communities and groups? Do those groups could then go out and use that money and go out and do stuff creative with it? Generally not. Are they going to do something to better the world with it? We aren't seeing that necessarily the case, because the amount of money is usually enough for them to be able to survive. And really, when you have the victimhood of what the Democratic Party seems to be doing these days, surviving is all that really needs to happen. It's not about anything else. Just got to survive. Just got to survive. Another day to be a victim. Another day to be a victim on the Democratic plantation. That's right. Okay, story came out yesterday. James from John Solomon saying there's no charges for James Comey in the leak probe. Justice Department Chief Watchdog preparing a damning report on James Comey's conduct in his final days. As FBI director, that will likely conclude he leaked classified information and showed a lack of candor after his own agency began looking into the feud with President Trump. Inspector General Michael Horowitz's team referred Comey for possible prosecution under the Classified Information Protection Laws, but the Department of Justice prosecutors, working with Attorney General William Barr, reportedly have declined prosecution, a decision that's likely to upset Comey's conservative critics. Prosecutors found that the IG findings compelled, but decided not to bring charges because they did not believe they had enough evidence of Comey's intent to violate the law, according to multiple sources. The concern stems from the fact that one memo that Comey leaked to a friend specifically to be published by the media, as he admitted in congressional testimony, contained information classified at the lowest level of confidential, and that classification was made by the FBI after Comey had transmitted the information, the sources said. So we'll see how this whole thing plays out. Just remember, just because he didn't get charged with this crime doesn't mean anything. Perhaps the FBI is only going to go, or perhaps William Barr is only going to go after the real serious crimes. Perhaps the crime of leaking stuff pales in comparison to the crimes that were committed against the FISA court. So hold on, folks. Don't get your panties in a bunch out there about what happened here, because things are moving along, and just because one thing happens that might not be the way you think it should happen doesn't mean it isn't the way it is supposed to happen. Okay. Now, the Inspector General report should be out. This article here from The Last Refuge says, moments away, Inspector General report on James Comey to be released any day. Now that we know the Department of Justice Inspector General is about to release a report on the former FBI Director James Comey, and now that we know the OIG principal review phase was already initiated, we can start to monitor the IG website for the release. It appears that the pending IG report will cover the conduct of James Comey, how he handled a series of memos he produced, contemporaneous accounts written by Comey covering events he documented outside of normal FBI protocol. The Inspector General report has been given to James Comey in advance. According to John Solomon reporting, Comey's lawyers, Patrick Fitzgerald and Daniel Reichman, along with spokesperson Keith Urban, are all participating in a review of the report. This is called the principal review phase. And the example of 2018 IG report and Andrew McCabe, the OIG gave McCabe's team a week during the principal review phase and then published a report 2 days after the responses were submitted. We don't know how long James Comey has had the report, but my hunch is several days. So we'll see this anytime. Remember the previous Inspector General report, page 294, it talks about Hillary Clinton, the foundation, crimes against children. We also have the information that came out not too long ago, the FBI document I read to you earlier in this week, I believe it was, and which it had Anthony Weiner. There was another name that was blotted out, you couldn't see, but this had to do with the creation of child pornography. Okay, so there's some bad things being investigated. Don't get excited if what you think is going on isn't going on, because it might be different than what you think. All right, here we go. Insider.com investigators are reportedly probing close Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell's mysterious ocean nonprofit. Investigators are probing an oceanic conservatory group founded by Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's close associate and alleged madam, for possible ties to Epstein. British-born socialite Maxwell, 57, has been the subject of allegations for years that she was Epstein's top accomplice and has been accused of recruiting victims and abusing them alongside the financier. She has not been named in the most recent indictment of Epstein, but has denied any wrongdoing. The New York Post reported that the Terramar project, which recent filings had appeared to be kept afloat for more than $500,000 for Maxwell herself, had come into the crosshairs of the investigation as at least one young woman involved with the organization had contact with Epstein. According to the Post, prosecutors say Epstein transported young women between properties in New York, Palm Beach, and the Virgin Islands on his fleet of private jets, referred to as the Lolita Express, between 2002 and 2005. The Post reported that a young woman identified as a member of the board of the Terramar project was also listed as a passenger on 2 different flights from JFK Airport taken by Epstein's private plane in 2005 when she was 19. The woman also lived in a 3-bedroom home in Teaneck, New Jersey. That public records have also tracked back to Maxwell, according to the report. The Post added it is not clear at this time what the woman was doing on the flight. She did not return calls for comment. The report also cited an FBI source who would not confirm the investigation into what the charity is focused on. All right, we'll see how that unfolds. Just a little point. out there. We see one of the Hollywood stars who's doing a lot of talking on Twitter these days, Bette Midler. I think if one would dig in closely, you might find that Bette Midler might have some connection to this Terramar project, which is connected to this woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, which is connected to Epstein. So people are talking out there, running their big mouths for some particular reason. It's usually because they're about to get caught up in something and they're just trying to divert the attention from them. All right, Facebook. We've talked many, many times about how Facebook is a creation of the intelligence community, that the average American is unaware of this and is not really in a position to want to discuss it because they don't know. And if it's brought up, they simply say, it's a conspiracy theory. That's not true, even though the records all show that it is absolutely true. So Facebook is continuously working against the American people, pulling down information that could benefit the American people by knowing and putting information there that is bold-faced lies, and that's just the way that they operate. Well, here's a story. It says Facebook denies shadow banning. Shadow banning is when you ban somebody, but you don't necessarily tell them they've been banned. They just don't realize because their information is not getting anywhere. Okay? But there's a problem with this because Facebook also received a patent for shadow banning. Facebook has continually denied that it participates in the practice of shadow banning, a method of blocking a user's post or comments from everyone except the user who made the post or comment. But a newly granted patent shows that Facebook not only does practice the shadow banning, but wants to protect by patent the method it uses for doing so. Despite the fact that Facebook executives denied the practice, congressional testimony in April, the company was awarded a patent by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office earlier this month for an automated system that would receive a list of proscribed content and blocked comments containing the proscribed content by reducing the distribution of those comments to other users while continuing to display the blocked content on the commenting user such that the comment user is not made aware that his or her comment was blocked. Okay? So that's problematic. So Facebook has not been honest. Can you believe that? Facebook has not been honest. But in order to protect themselves and keep themselves in the realm of honesty, Facebook decided to go get some fact checkers out there. And one of these fact checkers they decided to get was a group called Snopes. And for some strange reason, many, many people actually think Snopes is a credible source of fact checking. Nothing could be further than the truth. And I know those who are so ingrained on the Democratic plantation are going to say, no, that's not true. Snopes is real. Oh, Snopes is real. Yeah, it is real. But it's not credible. They're an opinion piece. They're a far left-leaning organization. I'm going to read a little bit about them to you here. This article here comes from foodbabe.com. Says do you trust Snopes? You won't after reading this. The big players in the GMO and agrochemical industry, Monsanto, Bayer, Dow, Syngenta, DuPont, are engaging in extensive public relations, advertising, lobbying, and political campaigns to make sure that genetically engineered crops and the chemical pesticides they require continue to proliferate in the U.S. To improve their public images, they are attempting to manipulate everything we see and hear about GMO crops and pesticides. In the media, on the TV, the internet, print articles, using propaganda-laden commercials, mommy blogger articles, farmer endorsements, hired operatives to change Wikipedia, front group websites. The biotech industry is feeling threatened, and their profits hang in the balance. They are trying to silence the truth. Well, we now have evidence that website Snopes.com is being manipulated by the industry too. But first, let's examine what Snopes is really all about. A lot of people trust the website Snopes.com. They use it to fact-check things they hear on the internet. For no reason whatsoever, this mom-and-pop website has been put on a pedestal as if they all be-all, end-all truth in the internet. Facebook recently teamed up with Snopes, allowing them to become the arbitrator of fake news circulating on the network, essentially elevating them as an authoritative source of information. I find this development alarming on many levels. Okay, well, we've all heard about Snopes. Is Snopes a credible and authoritative source of information? Snopes is now owned 50% by an ad agency called Proper Media, and they make their money by generating millions of views on third-party advertisements on their website. It simply makes sense to them to seek out articles that are viewed viral to debunk so that they can piggy bank on the traffic and generate more advertising revenue. They were founded by a husband-wife team who are now in the middle of a contentious divorce, which founder David Mickelson has been accused of embezzling $98,000 of company money to spend on himself and on prostitutes. Snopes has now hired a team of fact-checkers who collaborate to debunk falsehoods that are trending on the internet, but these fact-checkers have no editorial oversight, do not follow standard journalistic procedures, such as interviewing the authors of articles they are trying to debunk to get all sides of the story. Snopes doesn't have a formal screening process for hiring fact-checkers and for evaluating applicants for any potential conflict of interest. Without such standard, it is very easy for them to be infiltrated by those who work with the industry and have a hidden agenda. And then you can go down and you can continue to find now examples of how they've manipulated things. You know, there's before and after. There we have this one article here starts November 15th. A natural food evangelist and alternative health guru known as the Food Babe posted the results of an independent laboratory analysis of popular American food to demonstrate that they contain high levels of glycose, a chemical in Monsanto's Roundup herbicide, the most prevalent weed killer on the planet. The way that they wrote this was after they fact-check it, they said the natural food evangelist and alternative health guru known as Food Babe posted a report from a natural food activist group named Food Democracy that now alleged to demonstrate common American food contain high levels. So right in there you can see there's a little change. They go in, they do their editing, they make their adjustments, you know, all because they've been given the green light as being the arbiters of truth. Here's another article over at dailymail.com. Exclusive Facebook fact checker who will arbitrate on fake news is accused of defrauding the website, and its staff includes an escort porn star and Vice Vixen domme. Okay, and you can go through here. They got pictures of the happy couple in here. Just a couple of jokesters. And, you know, dishonest folks and far left-leaning liberals. But this is who is being used. Now, I'm not going to read the article. You can get into yourself. If you don't know at this point in time that Snopes is a joke, then maybe you should just stay away from any field of investigation because obviously it's not your forte. But the reason I bring up Snopes is because today, or on May 30th, a paper came out from the FBI that was talking about fringe groups that are out there in the world. And Snopes just so happens to be one of the groups that they call on and list as a source for their information. So when the FBI gets to the point where they're using Snopes, you know that there's some real problems going on. And they're using them to try to attack a movement, the movement QAnon that is out there. The reason they're attacking is because, you know, the saying, when you're over the target, that's where you catch the most flack. You know, things are about to really go down and unfold. So you got the organization, the FBI. How many people now got fired from the FBI? You got Comey, you got McCabe, you got Stroke, you got Page, others, Bruce Orr, his wife, all these different people that were involved, gone. So the same agency who had a problem with incompetent, dishonest individuals, that same organization is now claiming, because Snopes told them so, that a fringe group is out there pointing at the bad things the FBI is doing, and because of that, the FBI wants to make sure that this is not going to be done anymore. Because the FBI, well, it's important to them to maintain their credibility as a source of dishonesty in America. Source of dishonesty. There used to be a time probably where they were a credible agency, and I keep hearing all the talk about how, the 99 percenters of the group, but then you hear all the BS that comes out, and you have to wonder how many in the group really are on the side of the American people, and how many of them have decided to become traitors to our country and join with all of those in the coup. It's crazy. But there truly are problems in the world. There truly are these events. They want to lump them all up on the idea of conspiracy theory. In other words, that was made up by the intelligence community to try to downplay information that is gathered. There's plenty of credible investigators out pulling information together. Snopes is certainly not one of those. Should not be trusted. And when you see them listed as a source, that should be your sign that something is not quite right. Something's a bit silly about the process. And Snopes being mentioned by the FBI, well, you can't write that. It's about as silly and crazy as it gets. Silly and crazy as it gets. Okay. So, let's change to another subject. This is a subject that I think is very important in the world today. The subject of slavery. Slavery. 388,000 slaves were sent from 1525 to 866. But today, there are still 9.2 million slaves in Africa alone. According to PBS.org and Dr. Henry Louis Gates, between 1525 and 1866, in the entire history of the slave trade to the New World, according to the Transatlantic Slave Trade Database, 12.5 million Africans were shipped to the New World. Of that amount, 12.5 million, less than half a million, 338,000 were shipped to North America. Just a small percentage, okay? Now, any percentage is a bad percentage. Slavery is a bad thing. The problem with slavery is that everybody at one time or another has been enslaved. We hear a lot about black race enslaved, but whites were also enslaved. Mexicans were also enslaved. Other groups were also enslaved. The word slavery comes from the word Slav. Slavs were a group of people that were enslaved probably longer than anybody. They were enslaved by Muslims. They were enslaved by groups that were trying to put on the protected class list, that these people were protected. Yet these were the groups out there that were causing slavery and causing harm upon others. Read you a couple of weeks ago an article that talked about the first slaves in America weren't black, but they were white. And others are going to say, well, they were indentured servants. What's the difference? If you're a slave, you're a slave. Okay? Does it really matter if you're living in the big house or if you're out in the field? If you're a slave, you're a slave. Shouldn't be happening any way, shape, or form. And if you go and you read about some of these indentured servants, they were for life. Okay? The article goes on to say, today in Africa, there are estimated 9.2 million people living in modern-day slavery. If Democrats and Republicans are serious about eliminating the blight of slavery, they may want to focus on the modern-day Africa. This week, Nancy Pelosi and 12 Democrats will travel to Ghana to commemorate the 400th anniversary of the first slaves from Africa arriving on the American shores. Well, they're a bunch of disingenuous people. The Democratic Party is filled with some of the biggest racists I have ever seen. Race baiters, all of them. They want to turn a blind eye to the slavery that exists in the world. And who's getting trafficked a lot these days? Women. Women. Democrats want us to turn a blind eye because even though they tell you that they care about women, they don't. They don't care that the women are enslaved. And all these brain-dead liberals and Democrats out there that keep talking about separating the children at the border, not even once considering the fact that maybe these children are being trafficked and the ones they're being separated from aren't their parents. You would think from hearing them that these Democrats and liberals would prefer that the children of the human traffickers. You would think, according to hearing what some of these these politicians say that that would be their preference. I can't imagine any American who would think it would be a good idea for a child to remain with somebody that is trafficking that child. I would think the most humane thing to do would be to take that child away from the trafficker. They are doing that down at the border. But the media, who's in collusion with the DNC and wants to see the country be torn apart, wants everyone to believe that that is the case. They don't want to tell you otherwise. Why would that be? That's because when you look at the trafficking problem, some of the same journalists who are telling you one thing and lying about it are involved in the process themselves. There truly is a process going on in the world that is dark and ugly. It involves human trafficking and slavery. The FBI and any other organization can try to tell you this isn't the case. They're lying to you. They're lying to you because they think you're dumb enough to believe the lie. You see, a lie, when it's told, and especially if it's a stupid lie, can only work if the people who are hearing that are dumber than the thing they're saying. The only way you can be dumber than the thing that's being said is if you have less education than those who are saying it. When everybody is sent to school to be educated, you have an opportunity to provide to them the limited amount of education you want them to have to keep them dumbed down. So they go into the world uninformed and are easily able to be fooled by any of these policies that are going on because they're not smart enough to logically think their way out of them. In addition to the physical slavery that is going on in the world today, the horrific practices of trafficking and slavery that continue to be a stain upon our society of humans on this planet. There's other forms of slavery, financial slavery. People are enslaved and they don't even realize it. How many times have you heard somebody say they feel like a slave getting up on a daily basis, having to go work someplace? And then a fight for the wages so people can rise above a wage to a wage that makes sense. But then you got the politicians out there who are saying minimum wage should be this amount. But then it's found out that they're not paying their own people that amount, but they're declaring it should be that way for everybody, but I guess not for them. Do as I do, do as I say, not as I do. That seems to be the policy. But we can change this, my friends, or we can buy into it. It's up to us. We can listen to the lies that are being told, take them for face value, run with them and share and spread the lies to everybody we meet as if it's gospel truth. Or we could take a few moments, apply some logical thinking to what's going on and be able to dissect a problem in a relatively quick period of time. Because the things that are saying can be dissected just by thinking them through. Once you know Snopes is an organization that has no credibility, once you know that they are a far left-leaning organization that supports far left causes, and when you start to see the money that's coming into them and you realize there's money coming from places like George Soros and organizations that are hurting Americans, once you realize this, then you never have to be questioning that again. And when you see they are being used by others as official sources, you know that source compromised as well. You got to apply logical thinking, my friends. That's what's hurting Americans. We're not thinking properly. We're not thinking properly because our minds have been infiltrated in this battle for the mind, and people are losing. There's only one protection. You got to put on the armor of God. You got to trust that the words of Jesus Christ are accurate, and that if we simply believe that we can make the changes in the world and we can reach to the higher power to rise us above these challenges, that things will be good. It's not that difficult. But it is difficult because faith is a really tough thing sometimes for many people. So you got to work real hard, my friend. You got to put on that armor of God. You got to put on that faith, and you got to stand strong. Do that and watch good things happen. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow. God bless you. Peace. I'm out of here.